My name is Bri. I am a current junior at NYU studying journalism and social cultural analysis, specifically in the Department of Asian Pacific American Studies.
My major, my undergraduate degree is human communications, and my minor is creative writing and social action. So I also had that kind of structured writing, but that didn't feel like journaling my rawness the way that I do now with the love story.
And then I'm going to school full time. I'm doing work for the love story. I've got both of my kids that keep me on my toes.
And I've been with the love story for a year as a journal artist. And basically that means I'm writing journal entries about my personal experiences, fictionalized versions of my personal experiences with mental health and adjacent struggles.
Because of the love story, I was able to write and publish my collection of poetry. It's called The Moth That Haunts the Laundry Room. You can find my author site at themothpoetry.wordpress.com.
And it really intrigued me because it was like talking about just some Christian aspects with journaling, which I had never seen before, and just dealing with like anxiety and how to journal through it, and a big focus on mental health. So I was really intrigued. And so I had never thought about really journaling pain, or at least writing it in a fictional setting, and creating a story out of it. So that was also really cool because I love writing and it's one of my passions, and I had wanted to eventually get published, which I am now.
It goes back almost as far as the time I could write. I started writing, I think, first poems, not just for school, but because I wanted to write poems. I like the sound of them. I like to read them aloud. I like to read them quietly. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that my parents read to us a lot. And I remember even being young enough to go, read that again, and liking the sound of words.
Bring people in, letting them know what the mission is, and building an infrastructure by where we can stay integrated as a virtual team across the United States, and to fulfill one mission. And that mission has also evolved over time. Initially, I thought it was just about lowering suicidal ideations and taking away the stigma. But as I started doing more research, I realized instead of focusing on fixing the problem, we're better off creating the solution as a replacement, rather than, because whatever you focus on grows. So it's a matter of finding a better solution than the one that currently exists.
The purpose of the love story is to be graceful in the middle of, hardships and all this. And I mean, sometimes it's very difficult to be graceful, especially to your enemies. I call them, they're not really enemies, but just to those people that have done you wrong. So I actually started journaling when I was 13 years old because I was going through difficult health issues. I had asthma, what we thought was asthma, but it actually turned out to be scoliosis. And the scoliosis was so bad that my lungs were, my ribs were literally
oh my god,
trapping my lungs. And so
I didn't even know that could happen.
It happens when it's like extreme cases. And my case was that when you have scoliosis, it's normal that your like vertebrae is like at least one curve. I had two curves and my ribs were already like rotated. So I was like this, and we hadn't noticed because it literally didn't show up physically. Like normally when you have scoliosis, you could see that a patient is like a little tilted. I wasn't. And so yeah, that was very hard. We were almost for a whole semester. I was in 8th grade. And yeah, we didn't know what I was going on.
Such a sensitive age.
Yeah, I was very small. I didn't know what was happening. And my parents, I was so physically ill that they took me to get mentally better, to try to survive through all that I was going through. And that's my therapist at the time. She's still my therapist now. She told me to write it down, and that's how I actually started journaling. And at the time, I used to draw a lot. I don't really draw anymore. And so I used to draw and like make stories and all that. So that was my way of journaling. how I started journaling. And so even now that I write for the love story and all this, I still find myself journaling about stuff that happened to me at that time, because I think I never actually processed it, or at least I'm in a time in my life that I'm able to actually process it. Because of course you always say, oh, I moved on from that, that's in the past. But I think that's why I also had that like rebel stage that I did have when I was a teenager.
I just felt like it was a really good opportunity to get myself writing again. I have a bachelor's in creative writing, and since I had graduated, I wasn't doing anything with writing. I was just going to work, coming home, going to bed. So the love story was a way of breaking that cycle for me. It was a way of grounding me in reality. It brought me back to like who I was, and it let me kind of free myself a little bit. And like it was this very cathartic experience to just write down how I'm feeling and not have to worry about anyone reading it, just writing it down. So the way the love story has helped me is it's my grounding practice. I often disassociate as a result of my depression. So it's a way of just bringing me back into my own space, like my body and mind space, and being able to breathe again. So
when you're writing creatively, you get to tell the story, but you're also writing in a way to try and move someone to change and move in a different direction, which I think is very powerful, because I have finally realized now at 38 that words are my love language. And I know that it's more like words of affirmation, right, specifically to that concept and those theories, but I don't even know if that's how you say it. But I just mean, for me, the way that I communicate with the world is words, and obviously body language and all of the other important aspects, but it's what people say, it's what I say, it's what I read, how I take things in. I mean, literally, it's how we get directions to do anything is words. And so it's important how we use them, and who we use them, like how we communicate with people. So and I always had that like lovely idea, oh, I'm going to write a book one day, but I didn't ever think that what I had to say was worth listening to, because I believed so many other people along my path that didn't give what I had to say as much credit as I thought that it deserved, and I allowed that to stifle my own voice. And so I feel like with the love story, I am in a place now where I can just, do exactly what Minji intended, which is, break wide open.
I'm working on a novel that started in a completely different direction.
mm-hmm.
And the main theme was about jealousy, which I think I struggled a lot with personally. And now I've noticed like that's the truth in the story, because obviously there's parts in the novel that aren't true, but that's what I work on during journal sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's nice that you can take these experiences that but then also kind of like add to it.
I usually write stories, like that's what I've been wanting to do since I was like 5 years old, was to be an author. And I realized like after high school, everything that I was feeling, I was putting my characters through, and I was like, this isn't working. My character would never do that. That's me. And I hit a writer's block for like almost a year, because I was not finding any release for anything that I was feeling or wanting to say, and journaling actually helped me get out of that rut. So it's like now I have my journaling where I can be like, hey, this is all me, and then I have my writing where it's like, this is my characters, leave them alone.
I was in a toxic and violent relationship, and I when I used to think about that, or if someone else had said that to me, I would think that I would just picture the violent part, and then you think, okay, well, why did you stay? But then there's like all this other psychological damage and nonsense, and really difficult to explain reasons how someone gets caught up in something so awful. And part of that is that I had allowed what other people had told me, often this ex, I would allow what he would say about me. Like, I would allow that to be true. And I would tell myself those things too. And so since I thought that I was, all of these terrible things that he had told me, then I wouldn't have even thought that anybody would want to hear what I have to say, or that what I had to say was worth anything, because every time that I had opened my mouth, it was, the response was to dismiss or invalidate or, whatever it was. And so when I was in that headspace, I probably could have used this the most, but I don't know that I would have sought it out or continued to seek it out the way that I do now.
I think that often people think that, like, they get writer's block and they think that everything that they write has to be profound.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be like this beautiful thing. And it's because that's what we're used to reading. But it's like you forget, like, journaling kind of helps us remember that there's a process to it. It's like there's a first draft, a second draft. And journaling is just like you said, that release, that you're just letting it flow out of you.
Yeah, exactly. One of the biggest things, like, I don't know if like some people are this way too. I'm not a religious person. And I know like we have a lot of Bible references and quotes and stuff. And that actually scared me away from the love story for a while. Because I was looking for writing jobs after I got my bachelor's degree, and a love story popped up. And I took a look around and I was like, oh, there's a lot of like religious aspects to it. It's probably not a good fit for me. But then it kept popping up. I think that it was founded on religion, but it's definitely for everybody. And I would just tell people, like, if you're not a religious person, don't worry about like those aspects of this program, because it is so helpful, and it's showing you like a completely different side to everything, and like it's been so helpful for me. So like that's like the one thing that I would let people know is like, don't let that scare you away.
I agree with that. I came from a very religious family, and for a while I was like, oh, like, yeah, like sometimes I don't like when it feels like it's thrown in your face.
Yeah.
But then I felt like I was like, what's with the love story? Like, what's happening with this? But then I realized it's more of just like the inspiration of it versus like it has to be the only inspiration. It's not, because I feel like a lot of times people with religion are like, this is my life, I am a Christian, and it's like,
exactly.
They feel like that's like the main highlight of their life. And I didn't feel like that with the love story at all. It felt like, oh, it's just another book, here's the inspiration from it.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that people should like be aware of before they go into it. It's not being thrown in your face, and it's just a guideline.
A really good point, because I remember myself feeling that way, like being a little like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I grew up with my grandparents are religious, and it's just like they're constantly, like even now they're constantly just like throwing it at me, and I'm like, stop, like no. So I was like, no, I've got that from one side already. I don't need it from a program that I want to work with. But it's so not like that, and it's enough to be like helpful, but it's not enough to be like, hey, this is what you need to know, like this is the truth. It's not like that at all, and I think that's really great.
I am so grateful that you mentioned that, because like you went into something that I didn't even think of, but you're right, like that could definitely turn people away, where they think that it's exclusively one kind of mindset.
Yeah, and it definitely pushed me away the first time, until I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. So when something keeps popping up, I'm gonna pay attention, and the love story would just not stop popping up, and I'm like, okay, this is a sign. I need to look into this more. And then I was like, okay, that's different. Like that's actually really interesting. So then I'm so glad that it just wouldn't stop popping up, because now I'm like, this is a great program. It's helped me so much, and I love it.
Being productive in a way that is not based on capital. You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your own health. And journaling actually has I haven't read a lot into it, but there's like a lot of science behind how journaling can help you physically. Like it can lower your blood pressure, and it's just a good way of relieving stress, because stress is a killer. A lot of people will feel stress in their gut, and what that does is it can cause stomach problems. It can cause a lot of other health problems. So when you're journaling, you're just releasing like your emotional stress, you're releasing like that physical stress in your body, and you can kind of just unclench, and it's good for your emotional health, your mental health, and it's good for your physical health as well.
It's been amazing how freeing it can be. So I think that's just, you've really like touched on something that I don't think a lot of people think of with journaling. I think that's really important.
What got me into journaling is that when my sister passed away, she left a treasure of journals, and she's been journaling since she was 16 until her untimely recent death, that allowed me to see over 25 years of journal writing that she's been writing since she was 16 years old until the time that she's about to pass. So I read most of it, which was helpful in understanding her pain, because she had a lot of pain in there, a lot of regression and a lot of depression in there. It was very helpful for me to heal through. That made me get into journal writing after reading her stuff, and started to journal like about my feelings, about how I feel about grief, because I went through not only my sister but also loss of my father too. So it was like unexpected events that made me journal my thoughts. I mean, yes, there are a community of people I could talk to, but it was hard to connect with people. So journaling and writing really helped me to heal those wounds. So still journaling, it's helping me to unveil a lot. It's unpacking me a lot of stuff. So
though, but you're so right, like there's such a like drive to always be creative and always be on, and I think that a lot of times, I think you're right, like it kind of limits our, like we're just like, oh, I might as well not even try, it's not going to be anything good. But then
right, because there's this whole like pass or fail mindset, and it's not about that. It's about just being creative and just feeling good about what you did. It doesn't have to like create the best product. It's not about the product, it's about just getting it out there and getting it out of your brain.
For me, it was about processing information and expressing emotions, and also documenting the human experience. That's what it was for me. And I think it's probably like that for every artist, whether or not they're writing or painting or sculpting, they wind up before they realize it, recording human history. And I think that's important.
There's a reason why I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere. As my attorney has told me, I don't think you're going anywhere, but I'm happy you did your estate planning, but still, I don't think you're going anywhere. I think whatever happened, that's it. You're here for the long run. And so I learned that my life has a purpose, and it's all about growth and contribution to this world instead of hiding this, because I think I have something to share with people that want to heal and want to remain human, because I've come across so many people, so many clients that are now interacting and learning how to self-love and getting great responses on healing through, instead of putting so much division, because we are a divided world. I'm not going to deny that, but we can make it better if we chart out and unify each other in a healthy way.
I want them to know that the love story supports mental illness, and I think that that's been swept under the rug for so long that people don't want to talk about it, and they should. And I also want people to know that the love story supports writers. Before I came and onboarded with the love story, I never had anything published before, and I've not only published online, but in a couple of weeks I'll be publishing my first book. And I want people to know that, especially writers just getting started.
You can never know exactly why medical problems arise. They just kind of happen sometimes, and it could be like a long time coming, and we just don't recognize what we're doing to our bodies. And so I think that mine stemmed from a lot of anxiety. Like I think that I had mental torment that translated into physical ailment. And so I think for myself, like I've always kind of like, you know, thought about writing, you know.
It's kind of helped me develop my personal voice as well as my writing voice. I at one point I was reluctant to share my opinions and my experiences, and now since I've been journaling with my community and sharing with them, I just feel like it's okay to speak up and it's okay to speak out, and that's something that I wasn't doing before. And as far as my writing voice goes, it helped me become a better storyteller. You know, I can now tell a story with a little bit more confidence than what I could before.
And so I want it to be, I think that's like one of the things that I want to go back and kind of explore and kind of figure out, you know, why did this happen and why did it happen when it happened? And, you know, and especially as a woman too, I feel like a lot of times women suppress their emotions. And it's like, we think like, oh, if I just gulp that back, if I just swallow it back, it'll go away. And it's like, nope, still here. And so I think I'm starting to figure that like I can't swallow that back. Like I need to let things out, you know, and I don't need to, you know, it doesn't have to be fire coming out and wild eyes and be like, ah! But I think I need to still speak up for myself. You know, we talk about like being kind and being considerate and being patient to everyone, but often we forget ourselves, you know? And so it's kind of like, I want to write this, like, for me, it's like, I want to write this exploration of like, you know, I started with this ailment and I was at my weakest point and I kept foraging through being like, I'm fine. But obviously I was not fine. and just like the toll that took on me. And it took me a long time too, to recognize that I was doing that to myself. You know, I was so quick to blame everybody else and to blame other problems and not look at my own actions and not hold myself accountable and not take care of myself because I wasn't doing that, you know? It's like this, it's a weird thing because you're like, if I blame everyone else, I'm taking care of myself because, you know, I'm recognizing all the things that they're doing and hurting me. And it's like, girl, you're eating a tub of ice cream. You're hurting yourself, you know? You know, I'm inspired by the formatting and by the other journals and by the quotes. And I think so it'll be good too to like have that mentorship relationship too, because I think I'm still figuring it out. Like I'm still like, the writing isn't necessarily the problem, like the actual like sitting down and typing, but I think it's more like thinking about the formatting of it. So I think that's something that I want to come away with this, you know, and in turn like recognizing that it's okay to stand up for myself, you know, and that it's okay to let things out, you know, it's okay to not be okay, you know. And I think that like for a long time, like my name's Dorothy. When I was in middle school, I was called Dorothy the doormat, you know, because I was like, oh, okay, yes, you can have my lunch money. Oh, okay, yes, you know, and I let myself be bullied, you know. And I'm not saying that, you know, I didn't know any better, you know. And I don't think that's, you know, it's not fair. And it's, you know, of course it's not entirely on me, you know, like bullies are gonna be bullies, you know. But I think that, you know, someday I want kids and I want them to know that they can be strong on their own, you know. And I feel like if I can get that much closer to the person that like I admire, then like it's gonna be inspirational just to think like, what are my kids gonna look like, and what are their kids gonna look like, you know. And like, and what are, like, if someone reads something that I write, what are they gonna look like how is this gonna impact us to become stronger?